My program is part of DISEED, so that is the Department of Indigenous Science, the Environment and Economic Development. So within that actual department, we have our science programs, which include Indigenous science and other programs such as chemistry, which includes organic chemistry, introductory chemistry, as well as general chemistries. My program has allowed me to expand I guess my horizon, so to speak, looking at the chemistry of food and also cooking. So that's a program that we're going to be working on this fall. So fall of 2018 is the first offering of that course, and it is a science course that will have a high degree of traditional knowledge braided into the other material in the course. My program is chemistry, and I hesitate to just say that, I guess. I wish I had a better term for it. You know, as a scientist, that's what I trained in to acquire a PhD in organic synthesis. But here at First Nations University of Canada, chemistry, I think, represents something a lot bigger. So in addition to the chemistry of food and the reactions that occur when you're cooking, or the chemistry of medicinal plants and other things that we study here, we've got a really broad view for students to partake in. That includes classroom chemistry, as well as research in laboratories. So our age group at this institution features usually young undergraduate students, but it's fantastic that we offer Chemistry 100, which is introductory chemistry. So that is not a remedial course, but it is a very much introductory chemistry course. And oftentimes in that particular one, we have students that are 60 years old or older. So we have a wide range of different students with different backgrounds in that particular course. So really the age range for university studies here is really from about 17 to 77 and beyond. So that's one thing I really enjoy. Our programs also involve outreach. So we, in partnership with Let's Talk Science, which is a nationwide organization, do outreach work and plan to do outreach work at education centers throughout Saskatchewan. The age range there would really be from early elementary to high school and beyond. So really what we're talking about is, you know, from the moment you're able to walk to I guess the end of one's university career. That's our age range here. The aim of a science program such as this is to offer all students at First Nations University of Canada an opportunity to explore chemistry, to understand chemistry basics, not just looking at the periodic table, for instance, and those basics, but taking it from there to principles that we can learn experientially to I think enrich our lives, really, to better understand the world and acquire tools, maybe not to become better scientists, because many students that take my courses maybe not don't wish to do that, but rather to have those tools for other courses. So learning objectives for a chemistry course, obviously we want students to have a good understanding of the class itself, the material covered within, but again, you know, my teaching style is to uncover certain principles that are widely or broadly applicable to other situations. So really the objectives there are to end up with a toolkit of experiences that can maybe be applied to other courses, whether they be in engineering, languages, essentially anything that students are planning to take afterwards. Sometimes the objectives of students in a 100 level chemistry course or second year chemistry course, such as organic chemistry, which we teach here, are more science centric, or they plan to do research later. So certainly determining whether or not that's something a student wants to do, and offering more advanced specialized tools is another set of goals depending on the student. I think it serves Indigenous education well, one, because it's offered here at First Nations University of Canada, where we take every opportunity to work with elders in our courses, even in a chemistry class. So traditional knowledge to me is very important, of course, and we find ways to braid that knowledge into more traditional science concepts. So that's one reason why I think this is very important. I think it's a good example of Indigenous education because we are taking the opportunity to learn about practices and principles of chemistry and food and cooking, while also looking at Indigenous ways of knowing, and those will be explored in both the kitchen, which doubles as a laboratory this fall, and also in the classroom. So as often as we can, we will have that conversation. We'll make sure that the experience is experiential. We will allow elders, other knowledge holders, and Indigenous chefs to take part in this particular course. And I really look forward to seeing not just chemistry and Indigenous knowledge running in parallel, but really being braided together to strengthen the content of those courses. So, it's my understanding, obviously, that we want students to have a rich set of experiences that they can take outside of the classroom after their experience during the semester is done. And even if they don't wish to become chemists, I mean, I can only hope occasionally that does occur, but really if they don't wish to become chemists or scientists, they still learn to think scientifically about approaches that may allow someone to cook better, to prepare better food, and eat more conscientiously. And I think that's a really important set of goals as well. There's lots of different ways that you can measure success, I think. I know that at the end of the semester we can look at grades and compare, averages and things like that. I think those statistical strategies are really important, and that also includes how many students we have in the seats at the start versus near the end of the semester. But the way I determine whether or not a class is successful, or at least is working towards a goal such as that, is based on day-to-day experiences. So honestly, at First Nations University of Canada, we have the opportunity to have smaller classes. We have greater exposure to students' opinions, concerns, ideas, and insights. And I think from those experiences, or the opportunity to discuss in a one-on-one way, or at least address a class in a personal way, I have a fairly strong idea how things are going. I also make sure that in the courses that I teach, students feel comfortable to communicate even during class or outside of class about how things are going. Obviously, many students are scientifically or mathematically orientated. Other students may be less so, but all of the opinions of each student really do matter quite a bit. So, honestly, we don't, I guess, take polls apart from reviews at the end of the semester, but, having that kind of way to share information from the beginning of the semester until the end helps me teach better. I think Indigenous education, it's an evolving process for me, but I think Indigenous education is best described as education that incorporates traditional ways of knowing. So for me as a scientist, using traditional ecological knowledge, definitely taking every opportunity to work with elders, to learn from elders and other members of the community is important. So that's really a foundation for the work that we do, even though a lot of what I teach, comes from other sources. But finding ways to do that, to serve that mandate well at this institution, allows us to, I think, provide high quality Indigenous education. We have a 5-year plan, I guess. Everybody should have that. But a 10-year view of what Indigenous education should be. I can only really speak from where I stand, and that's in my realm of chemistry and other areas at this institution. But I would like to see our coursework relying more heavily on traditional ways of knowing. And of course I mentioned that before, but we're just getting started building those relationships. And as an outsider, as someone who, you know, doesn't know very much in many areas, I really can't wait to learn more, obviously. 10 years is really a long time if you're working hard, so I could imagine that we all can learn better how to combine science and traditional ways of knowing. So that's really key. I feel that we've made progress thus far, but I think there's so much more left to be done. A lot can be done in 10 years. I'd like to see our enrollment increase. I'd like to see the amount of chemistry content at this institution increase. But alongside that, I want to see more traditional knowledge in chemistry courses as well as other science courses. And in addition, I think it's important to say that we work alongside the University of Regina proper, and I also want to see those courses, similar courses that I teach over at the U of R, though, featuring that content too, because I think it's not something that should be exclusive just to First Nations University of Canada, but rather this entire campus and beyond, clearly throughout Canada and beyond there too. I think time and the ability to build relationships organically is important, right? So I'm not trying to make a pun as an organic chemist, but truly it's really important to work with communities in Regina. So I'm speaking of First Nations communities within Regina, those community members here at this institution too, but also elsewhere at other reserves or education centers throughout Saskatchewan. So to have success really takes time, it takes patience and planning. And I think those are tools that, you know, we acquire as faculty here. But I really look forward to the very diverse amount of experiences that are, you know, coming in future. And again, to build those relationships strongly requires consistency, but that also means time. So 10 years, like you mentioned, is a good, you know, distance to travel, I guess, in that way. And I think we can do a lot with that.